All right, welcome back to Crunch Time. Today we have a good 4.5 game slate on New Year's Eve. I say 4.5 because it's 4 on FanDuel and then 5 over on DraftKings. It starts half an hour earlier today. And I'm joined today with Chris, aka Chris Air DFS. As always, Chris, how do you feel about today's slate? How are you? How are you celebrating New Year's Eve?
I feel pretty good. I just had some late swap stuff I had to handle for the earlier slate, so I thought I made a mistake, but I didn't. So pretty happy about that, and yeah, I'm excited for this 4-gamer on FanDuel, 5-gamer on DraftKings.
What was it the all day the all day slate?
No, it's the early slate. So the Bulls, they announced their starters like 20 minutes ago, and they said Thad Young was starting, which changed things. And then because we projected Otto Porter to start, and then like 5 minutes later they updated their starting lineup and said that Otto Porter is starting. So had to scramble a bit.
Okay. I guess we'll go over DraftKings first today, since they start half an hour earlier with the Philadelphia Orlando game, which is omitted from FanDuel for the main slate today. Before we do that, if you guys haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps a lot with our YouTube recommendations, their algorithm. They like that. And hit the bell button as well, so you guys can always get notified when we go live for some good DFS content every NBA slate, every day before, 2 hours before the main slate. Let's go into this first game then. Let me open it up. Actually, wait, before we do that, I wanted to ask about a tweet I saw that you sent out. You said something about the NBA adding relegation. Is that because of all the blowouts this year? Or what's that all about?
Yeah, so like last year in the bubble, I think the bottom 8 teams weren't there, maybe bottom 10, and just the entire just competitive nature of the games was a lot better. So I definitely think if Adam Silver and the NBA add relegation, maybe you'll get less teams tanking for high draft picks, stuff like that. So I just think it would be a better product in general, just with less blowouts, I guess, and less just crappy teams.
Yeah, it's definitely not fun to tune into an NBA game and then have a blowout and then you kind of want to watch the starters play for the team that you're watching. It's more fun that way, so I agree. The more competitive the games are, the better the better it is for everyone. What about in terms of DFS? Do you like it more that way as well?
Oh yeah, it was much better in the bubble, just because you don't have these 40-point games in the fourth quarter, which they're just unwatchable. You have like G League players on the court with like 10 minutes left, and then it's just unwatchable.
Oh yeah, I also wanted to bring up what happened in the Charlotte game yesterday.
What happened? Blowout?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were like, I don't know, 3 games that blew out yesterday, and it was the Charlotte Hornets that blew out the Mavericks, which was pretty strange.
Crazy town. Okay, we can go over. Let's do Philadelphia first. For their injuries, nothing noted right now. We just have Embiid in again, and then for the starters we have Simmons, Curry, Green, Harris, and Embiid. What do you think of the Sixers today? Do you like Simmons today? How has he been performing this year? Do you think he's been kind of a bit worse than you'd expect fantasy wise, or do you think he's right on point?
I think he's on par. He's been getting around 40 a game. Actually had to late swap him into my early lineup on FanDuel, so I'm hoping he has a good game today. So I don't mind him as the last piece, as always. Just this team is so deep, it's not a great matchup. They're playing against a pretty slow-paced team in the Magic. They have an implied team total of 112, which is decent, so it's not the worst game to target, but I think there's better pieces elsewhere. I don't mind these guys as last pieces, so if you're doing that, I'm good with that. Just, we don't really like to target these guys without one of their big 3 being out, so if Embiid was out, we would like Simmons, Harris, and probably Dwight, but he's in, so we don't really need to go there. Same thing, if Simmons was out, we would like Embiid, we would like Harris. But with all these guys healthy, there's just not too much interest here from a DFS standpoint.
Okay. Let's jump into the Orlando side of things. We have T. Ross, former Raptor. I don't really like him though. He's out, and James Ennis injured as well. And then for their starters right now, we have Fultz, Fournier, Bacon, Gordon, Vucevic. I don't know. I wanted to say Fultz seems to be getting better. Like, he's not as bad as he was in his first season. So I think that's good to see. What do you think of Fultz? So,
I mean, the whole thing with these players is when they have opportunity, they're likely going to succeed just because they are pros. They're all good players. So DJ Augustine is gone this year, so Fultz is getting a good floor of minutes at 30. I think he has upside for more with Terrence Ross being out. So I do like him. It's a really good team to target with the Terrence Ross injury. So guys like Fournier, guys like MCW, he'll probably see increased usage off the bench. He'll probably be the main guy. Cole Anthony, he's okay. He likes to shoot the ball, so he might be able to take over that Terrence Ross role. So I like him in GPPs. If you're playing cash games, probably mainly only Fournier and MCW on DraftKings, just because they're underpriced with Terrence Ross being out, and they're the main guys that will fill in for his role.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, Fultz, he's all right. He's definitely not a target, but he's not a priority, but he's decent, so don't mind him.
Okay. We have a comment from Hasty in the chat on YouTube. He says Orlando's going to get the win today. 7-foot ape index for Fultz, and he's going to get lots of steals today. Comments on that, Chris?
Fultz, yeah, I mean,
and Orlando winning.
It's a revenge game for him. Not a cash target, but yeah, I like him in GPPs.
Okay, let's jump in. Is there anything else you want to talk about in this game before we go into the next one?
Not really. So Orlando has an implied team total of 108, which is pretty low. Also, if you see me looking up, it's probably because I'm sweating a 1v1 here with Sexton versus Oladipo in this first game. So it's pretty close right now. I think Sexton is up a little bit, so hopefully he beats him.
Okay. Well, how about I'll ask you this today. Do you think there's any good, like any high upside player in this game that could break the slate for GPP?
I think it's probably Fultz. Like, he has triple-double upside. Obviously, like I said, Terrence Ross is out, so that helps him. Maybe if Fultz gets in like foul trouble, we'll see one of Cole Anthony or MCW be able to break the slate. Probably an unlikely outcome, but it could be a decent way of looking at things.
Okay. Let's go into the next one then. We have Sacramento against Houston, who is, I think Houston's finally, they have their roster back, most of their guys, right? So it should be interesting to watch John Wall play again. He looked really good in the preseason, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked explosive, which is the main part of his game, so I do like him.
Yeah, okay. Just for their injuries, we have Kenyon Martin for Houston out, Mason Jones out, Cousins back in, Wall back in, Gordon back in, and McLemore out. Yeah, okay. So for the starters, we have Wall, Harden, House, Tucker, and Wood. What do you think of this game for DFS for cash? Is it more of a GPP target here?
So this is the best game of the slate. We have the highest over/under by far at 231. Houston is implied for 119, which it's pretty high. It's the highest of the slate. Yesterday we had Brooklyn implied for 123, I believe. And that game ended up scoring 280 total points, so that was just a huge game for fantasy points and just real life points. So definitely like this game and this team. My favorite game to target on this slate for cash games. Main pieces here, I like John Wall a lot on FanDuel. He's only 7K. He's had a little bit of rest since the preseason. He looked really good. He was active. He was handling the ball a lot. So he was taking a little bit of usage away from James Harden. But James Harden still looked good in the preseason when they were playing alongside each other. So I don't mind both of them. John Wall, only 7K on FanDuel is just, I think it's too cheap for me in cash games. He's 7-1 on DraftKings, so we don't need it with the Orlando value. We don't have the Orlando value on FanDuel just because that game isn't on the slate.
Mm-hmm.
So more of a FanDuel play for me. I don't mind him as the last piece if you're landing there on DraftKings, but yeah, like I said, more of a FanDuel play.
Yep.
Other guys in this game, Christian Wood, probably won't touch him. He's still priced up as if Cousins is out, but obviously Cousins is playing today, so should see a few less minutes for Wood. If you want to take some shots on Cousins, I don't hate it. I think that they might be able to see the floor together just because I think Cousins can play the perimeter. He can move the ball, so I think they'll try to run some lineups with both Cousins and Wood out there today.
Yeah.
So don't mind Cousins in GPPs. He's pretty expensive, though. He's 6.5 on FanDuel. I'm not sure of his price on DK.
5 on DraftKings. 5K on DraftKings. Quite a bit cheaper.
5K exactly, or 5.6?
Just 5.
Yeah, so I do like that in GPPs if you want to take some shots. Always been a Boogie Cousins guy, so he's always good for us in DFS. So yeah, a lot of good pieces here. Another guy I'll mention, last guy that I'll mention is House. Just if you need him for 4.1K on FanDuel at the small forward position, I don't hate it as a last piece. He should see probably 30, 34 minutes. So if you need him as a last piece, don't mind that in cash games.
Okay. Yeah, Cousins is quite a bit cheaper on DraftKings. That's 1.5K. That's a pretty big difference. Do you know why there's such a big discrepancy there between the two sites?
No, it's just I think his price will probably even out to be somewhere in between the two, so probably around 6K on both sites in the future. But I think they're probably just pricing him up on FanDuel just to be safe in case he was like starting for Wood or something like that. So yeah.
Okay. We have a question from Hasty saying Kmart back in the league. Kenyon Martin.
Really? Or is that that guy's son? What team is he on?
Houston.
Is he on the Rockets?
Kenyon Martin.
His son?
Yeah, junior.
Yeah, well, yeah, not in play for us, but yeah, I think he's out today actually.
Yeah, he's injured.
Play.
And then we have some other questions for this game. Boogie play short minutes today. Do you think he'll play short spurts? He played a bit in the preseason, right? Like we got to see his conditioning there.
Yeah, he wasn't playing big minutes in the preseason, so I don't expect him to play more than, I don't know, 24, 26. But his price on DraftKings is intriguing, especially in tournaments.
Yeah, probably. I have no interest in him on FanDuel. His price is kind of really high, but DraftKings for sure. Someone that's interesting to me because he's only 5K there. He has pretty high upside, right? Even in 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's really good fantasy point per minute wise. So we'll see how he does with Harden and Wall and Wood. But yeah, I do like him in GPPs.
We have one comment. Is it just me, or is anyone else not able to crunch DraftKings lineups? Do you want to... Well, I can cover that. So for DraftKings, we actually have... Let's see, I have to open a new one. For DraftKings, to follow their community guidelines, you can't just... Oh, I can't do it now because I have changes here. Maybe if I go to a different slate. You can't build lineups unless you make an adjustment to your player pool. So you either have to change projections. Yeah, exactly. You either have to change projections here. Any player, it doesn't matter to follow their guidelines. You can change them up, you can change them down. You can also lock a player or exclude a player. So if you like a player, you can just lock him in. And any of those things count as one action. You just have to do two of those to be compliant. And that just keeps everyone's account safe on DraftKings and everyone happy. Yeah. Okay, so I think we still have the Sacramento side of things here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so over there, I don't think there's any notable injuries today. Nothing new. We have Fox starting for them, Buddy, Barnes, Bagley, and Holmes. What do you think of them today?
So they have an implied team total of 113. As I mentioned at the start of the Houston side, I was saying that this is the best game to target today. So definitely have interest in these guys from Sacramento. We have Fox on the cover of our thumbnail today, so that means I like him a lot on both sites. Just too cheap for his role. He's 7.9 on FanDuel and then 7.8 on DraftKings, so his price really it fits builds today. Just because we have a little bit of a shorter slate, he's like a priority spend up in this elite game environment. So Fox is my guy in both formats. FanDuel specific, Buddy Hield, he's 5.4K. Big thing with him is if his shot is on, he can break the slate. If his shot is off, he can break your lineup. So hopefully his shot is somewhat falling today. 5.4 on FanDuel compared to 6.8 on DraftKings, which is one of the bigger differences we usually see. So yeah, Buddy Hield on FanDuel, and then one guy standing out for me on DraftKings is Marvin Bagley. He's 5.3K. Just sort of fits that power forward slot for us there. Don't really need him on FanDuel. I don't mind him if he's landing in your builds. I think there's two better power forward plays on FanDuel that we can play in our lineups that we'll go over later. So don't mind him as a last piece on FanDuel, but I like him a lot in DK Cash. Outside of these three main guys, not too much interest here because I think that their usage and shots are pretty condensed to these guys. So yeah.
Okay. We do have a question from our Discord. Does everyone use the Opto every night? I'm new to the scene. Thanks. I guess there's probably different ways to answer that. Chris?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he's in the... Oh, he asked that in the stream questions and answers. Yeah. So yeah. If you just mean the optimizer, yeah, I use the optimizer every night. I use these projections every night. I trust them a lot, especially in NBA, NFL, all the main sports. So I do use that. If you mean the optimal lineup from these projections, yeah, it's a pretty good starting point. With that said, I do think you have a pretty good edge on the field if you do that, but probably wouldn't do it every day. You might get into some trouble with DraftKings if you do that, so maybe make some changes at some point with your plays. But as long as you're following the guidelines, you should be good.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, we follow all the guidelines on DraftKings, so there's nothing that's not compliant here. And maybe, yeah, like Chris said, it's like a great starting point. Maybe it's a little bit too good, but with that said, also actually, the crunchers that have done really well, they've all made changes to their builds, right? So we had Turn and Burn have a takedown, right?
Yeah. So I just want to say on this point, like if you're trying to take down a GPP, you're never going to win with the optimal lineup just because it's going to be chalky. Like you're going to have everyone like, I don't know, 30% plus. And if you're trying to take a GPP down, you need leverage. You need to find the low-owned guy that breaks the slate. So, yeah. But for cash games, yeah, definitely a good starting point there, and you will have success if you just run the optimal.
And I think that's the thing with all sports. Like, the more you know about the sport, the better you'll do, just because you have that edge. And if you like make changes to reflect whatever you know that you think the field doesn't know, that's how you do better over time. So.
Could go both
long
ways
term,
with
you
that.
should just use your knowledge and then kind of use this as a starting point. It's a solid starting point.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I think it could go both ways. Like, if you have a bias towards your hometown team, like, that could really hurt you. So I try to take away all biases when I'm building lineups. I take each slate day by day, and I think that's the best way to look at things, especially in DFS.
Yeah. We do have another question. 5.4 for Buddy. Is that a good price from Hasty?
Yeah, Yeah, so I went over him on DraftKings. It's really, I mean, on FanDuel, it's a really good price for him. As one of your second shooting guard slots, I think we're gonna pay up for the first slot. So, yeah, Buddy Hield probably a lock on FanDuel.
Yeah, and then we have another one: Wall, Buddy, and House Core ? From Cody.
Wall, Buddy, and House.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Wall and Buddy, yes. House, maybe. Just depends on how the rest of your construction goes.
Okay. Any other questions? One day at a time. That is correct. What are the best optimizer settings to use on DraftKings?
Is that for cash, GPP? I think maybe he can get back to us on that.
Yeah, Oscar, just let us know if that's a cash or GPP question, and then we can answer that one a bit better. Okay, with that said, we can go into the next game. Knicks against the Raptors. Let me just load that one up. 1 second. We can go over the New York injuries first. We have Dennis Smith Jr. out. Frank Ntilikina, how do you say his name?
Ntilikina
out.
Ntilikina.
Nil?
Yeah.
Okay. You can say his
Frank
name.
Ntilikina.
Austin Rivers, probable. Alec Burks, questionable. Quickly, questionable. Obi Toppin, still out. Knox back in, and Spellman still out. For their starters, we have Payton, Barrett, Bullock, Randall, Robinson. What do you think of this game? And what do you think of Randall? He's been really good this year, fantasy-wise. Do you think he can keep that up? And do you think that has more to do with them missing a lot of pieces right now, or do you think they're kind of building more around him?
Just before we go over that, I just want to say that I think I won this 1v1 with Sexton versus Oladipo. The game's 2 minutes left, and then all the scrubs are in the game. So yeah, Randall, I like Randall. He's probably fairly priced now. This is probably one of the worst teams to target players from if you're spending up. I think there's value with some of the guards just because of all the injuries. They have an implied team total of 104, so not great for Randall. Toronto's a tough matchup. Pretty good defensive team, so they like to key in on some of the main guys from the opposing teams, so don't really like targeting stars going against Toronto. So Randall's probably a fade for me. I think we have better plays in Zion, Pascal Siakam, so don't need him today in cash games. Definitely a fine GPP play just because he's looked really good. He's playing big minutes. So yeah, that's it for Randall. Some guys standing out for me. These guys are more in play on FanDuel just with the pricing. DraftKings priced them up more so. So Mitchell Robinson at center on FanDuel, he's still 5.2K. That's just way too cheap. With this steals and blocks upside, it helps a lot on FanDuel just because you get 3 points for each steal and block. So 5.2K if he's playing, I don't know, 28 to 32 minutes like he has been. Definitely way too cheap. Probably a core play at center, even though I usually don't like to tag someone at core on center on FanDuel. Another guy here playing big minutes, RJ Barrett, Canadian boy. So I do like him. He chucks the ball. He doesn't make a lot of them, but as long as he's chucking and playing 38 plus minutes, we do like that in DFS. Better play on FanDuel just because he's 6.2 compared to 6.9 on DraftKings. So I like him on FanDuel. He's fitting some of my builds right now. I'm not sure if I will end up on him. But yeah, these guys are more in play on FanDuel just because of the pricing.
Okay. Raps D is so solid. Comment on that from Hasty. I think that's true. Yep. Okay, we can go to the Raptors side of things. We have McCaw, who is still out for them. And then for their starters right now, we have Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, OG, Pascal Siakam, and Baines. I brought up that Randall has had a really good start this season. And I think Siakam has struggled a little bit maybe to start off the season. Do you think there's any... do you think there's a game where he's due for maybe a ceiling game, like a bit higher than what he's been doing so far?
Yeah, so he hasn't looked too bad, but he's looked worse than his prior price tag. So FanDuel actually lowered his price. He's 7.4 now on FanDuel. We usually get him for like 8 to 8.5k. On DraftKings, he's still, I think, 8.3k, so still too expensive for me. But that price tag really stands out on FanDuel. Probably a lock for me. Gets an easy matchup against the Knicks. They're implied for 113 points. So I do like him a lot. He's their main guy. We know that. He shot 23 shots last game, 17 and 16 in their first 2 games. So he does shoot the ball a lot. Price tag low. That's definitely what we like in DFS. Other guys here, Lowry, VanVleet, I don't mind them. Not trying to prioritize them just because we have better guards. We talked about Fox. We talked about John Wall. Kyle Lowry, probably more in play on DraftKings, 7.7k if you want to land there as your last piece. I think a good debate is Fox versus Lowry on DraftKings, so I don't mind that as a last piece, but definitely not someone I'm targeting. Aaron Baines, 4.3k. If he sees minutes, he obviously always can get there. He always has a lot of upside with his just fantasy point per minute play. So don't mind him in GPPs. Outside of that, not too much here. Just to summarize, mainly Siakam on FanDuel.
Siakam on FanDuel. Okay. Is this supposed to be a close game? Let's see the spread.
So this is the widest spread of the game. It's at 9.5 currently.
Okay. And you don't like predicting your blowouts, but could see one.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's not, like I always say, if it's a 9 or 10 point game in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left, I think the starters will come back into the game.
I think we went over it last time. We talked about like blowout potential, then who would be getting more garbage time minutes. Do you think there's anyone in this game on either team who could benefit from a blowout?
Yes, so I think that's definitely interesting to talk about on this slate. So on the Knicks side, I think that Tom Thibodeau just likes to run his guys into the ground, especially as young guys. So I think RJ Barrett fits that sort of ideology just because I think he'll play in a blowout. So that's the main guy on the Knicks that fits that sort of thinking. And then someone on the Raptors, Chris Boucher, like he's like the garbage time king. Like he's a great fantasy point per minute player. If he plays 24, 28 minutes somehow, then he will get there. The problem is he had the big game against San Antonio, so he's priced up. Yeah, he's priced up, so it's kind of hard to do that with him. Maybe someone like Norman Powell, I don't mind him. I think if it's not a 40-point blowout, then Norman Powell will play. If it's like, I don't know, 15 to 20, I think he'll be in the game. So don't mind Norman Powell if you're taking that route.
Yeah. Hasty, I think he brought up Malachi Flynn, but I don't think he's seen much floor time this season. So I'm not sure if he would.
The problem with him is that he doesn't see regular rotation, so if it's a tight game, you're going to get a 0 out of him. Yeah. So definitely guys like Norman Powell, he sees the floor and he has the potential to take over the blowout time.
Okay. And then the question we had about the best settings for the optimizer, it was for DraftKings Cash. Do you want to touch on that now, or do you kind of want to get into that when I think there's one more game or 2 more games to go through?
No, we can go over that now quickly. I think if you're trying to find optimal teams or perfect lineups, like lineups you think are perfect, you usually don't want to mess with the settings too much, just because if you do trust the projections, like I think you should, you don't want to deviate too much from them. So I think you can just go to your optimizer settings and we can just show what the default is. So you have one unique, meaning each lineup will only have one different player. Minimum projection 0. You're not going to get any zeros in this lineup, so this setting doesn't really matter. Max exposure 100, so that means that you won't get a cap on anyone. And then randomness at 0, just because you want to have the projections do most of the heavy lifting.
Yep. And like these settings, you kind of want to tweak around more if you're doing GPP or multiple lineups. They don't really matter too much. Yeah, well, they do matter, but not. I don't think they're not. Sorry, I don't think they're as relevant in cash games. If you're looking for the optimal lineup, I think for cash you should be. If you're tweaking something for cash, it should be player projections, right? Like if you were to tweak something for cash, it would be player projections rather than the optimizer settings.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Let's see if there's any questions. Boucher too expensive. Agree. Chris agrees too. Knicks will win the championship sometime in the next 50 years.
Unlikely, but yeah, I mean, if that's coming from a Knicks fan, definitely don't want to put them down too much. They've had a rough couple of decades.
Relegation. Knicks put into the G League?
Yeah, something like that.
That would be a better bet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into the next game. We have New Orleans OKC. Let me just open up on both sites here. Okay. We can go over New Orleans first. For their injuries, we just have Gabriel out. Starters, we have Lonzo Ball, Bledsoe, Ingram, Zion, and Adams. I think we've had Bledsoe as kind of one of our chalkier plays, core plays this season, and how has he done for us? I think he's on my list of players I don't like anymore. Nope, did we lose Chris? 1 second. Chris, are you there?
Did I lose you? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here now. You hear me?
Yeah. Was that you or was that me?
I'm not sure. So hopefully it didn't go down. You'll probably have to say what you were saying again.
Yeah, let me just check if it's all online. I think we're good still. Okay, yeah. I was just saying for the New Orleans side of things, we had Bledsoe, I think, as one of our core plays this season, right? A few times? Once or twice, I think?
Yeah, we had him early on in the year. He had one good game and then one bad game on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I remember that one. So I think he's like on my list of fraudsters. I'm probably like I don't like rostering him because I think I have memories of him also kind of letting me down in years prior when he's like one of the better plays of the slate. But
yeah, that could go both ways. That could hurt you. Like if he's too cheap, you gotta go with what the sites give you.
Yeah, well, that's what you're saying about the biases as well, how they work against you or for you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So who do you like on the New Orleans side today for cash?
Yeah. So if Fox wasn't on the slate, the cover guy on our thumbnail would probably be Zion. He's just too cheap on both sides. He's 8-3 on FanDuel and then 7-9 on DraftKings, and he has center eligibility over there on DraftKings, so that helps a lot. I do like him just because he gets to the line a lot. He shoots the ball a lot. He's been playing big minutes when the games have been competitive. This game is projected to be 5.5 point spread in favor of the Pelicans, so I do like him. He's a lock for me on both sites. And then another guy that's looked really good, Brandon Ingram. I always like to mention him. He's too expensive for me on FanDuel, probably 9.4K. We're used to getting him around 7.5 to 8K, so he got a pretty big price bump. On DraftKings, I think he's still too cheap for me. He's 8K. For this role that he has now without Drew being there, he's pretty much taking over most games. So getting 20 plus shots, usage rate of around 33, minutes in the high 30s, just everything lines up for him. I guess if you want to take some shots on him in FanDuel, you can do so in GPPs just because most people won't play him for that price tag.
Yeah.
Lonzo Ball, I think he's a better real life player. He hasn't looked too good this year. He was getting in foul trouble in the first couple of games. He had a good game against San Antonio and then completely awful game against the Suns in that blowout loss. So if you're looking at game log, I wouldn't completely rely on that, but he can always get there with steals and blocks. So don't hate him in GPPs. Obviously not a cash play just because the floor is so low with him. Bledsoe, you were talking about him. He's 4.8K. Everything with him is trending downwards, like minutes, usage rate, shots. So it's just we just want to stay away at this point of the year. If the minutes go up or the shot attempts go up in the future, we can definitely find him in some of our builds again, but probably not someone I'm targeting today.
Yeah, me too. I'm just going to put him in my list. If you guys see me adding players to these groups that I have here, it's kind of more for my own notes for later when I start building my GPP lineups. Just because we go over quite a bit through the show, and I like to jot it down here because I used to adjust the minimum throughout the show, but then when we go over the cash lineups, I had to delete that. So I kind of do this so that it doesn't affect the cash builds when we do those. And these are kind of like the players that I like for GPP and starting point for me after the show, what I look at. I think we have some questions we can go over. Ingram is KD Jr. I think even Ingram, I think he was on a podcast what's his face?
JJ Redick?
Yeah, JJ Redick's podcast. He was on there and he was saying how that's who he wants to be. He loves KD. So he is KD Jr.
I haven't read the chat, but I bet we probably have a comment about Lonzo Ball. Is that true?
Yeah, we definitely do. We have a comment about Hansen doesn't think that Zion is priced low, but Bledsoe probably, but you don't like Bledsoe. No love for Horford or Bazley this game?
We haven't talked about OKC yet, so we will get to that.
Okay.
And then with Zion, I definitely think he's priced too low. I think he's probably projected for around like 42 fantasy points, so 8K is a bit too cheap for him on this slate.
Yeah, we do have a comment about you from Hasty. Chris Hart's Lonzo. I think that's fair to say. You do love Lonzo as a player.
No, I definitely don't love Lonzo, but I don't think he's complete trash, but I think he's a decent piece, like a last piece on a, I don't know, like 5th, 6th seed team. So don't hate him, but don't love him.
And then we have a comment from Ross. What's up with Boucher? What's up with these 50-point nights and then 2-point nights? He did that crap last year. I think that just has to do with his minutes. Like he doesn't get enough. He doesn't get enough minutes consistently, so I think that's his biggest problem. But when he's on there, he's so long and lanky. Like he can get like a few blocks, like 3-4 blocks in a few minutes, and he loves to chuck as well. So he does have really high upside when he's off, like going off, and when he's playing.
So with Boucher, like every time he starts, every time he gets a spot start, in years past we always jam him into our lineups just because he's usually near the minimum, and then he gets like, I don't know, he chucks the ball like you said, he gets a lot of blocks and steals, so we always like him in spot starts. But he had the big game and then they priced him up a lot, and then he played 5 minutes the next game, so that's just the Chris Boucher experience that you have to live with if you're rostering him.
Yeah, and something we also say is you don't want to buy high. So like you said, Boucher had that big game, so his price is a little high today. So it's a riskier play than if he was like minimum price.
Yeah, like on FanDuel, we like to buy low, and then I was mentioning Pascal Siakam. So Siakam's 7'4", Boucher is 5'9". Like that's 1,500 difference. That's pretty crazy for the two of them, considering Pascal's the main guy. He plays all the minutes. He shoots all the shots, and then Boucher, he doesn't get there most of the time.
And that's a 1,500 difference. I think that's the same pricing discrepancy between DraftKings and FanDuel for was it for Cousins? It's 1.5K, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of huge for someone like Boucher. So definitely not someone to consider today for me. And then we have some more comments on Boucher. Embiid too big for Boucher. He's too skinny to guard the big guys.
Yeah, it's probably going to be more of Aaron Baines for that reason. But wait, they're actually playing the Knicks, so that Embiid doesn't really come into play for this? Or was
The
he
other
talking
day.
about last game?
Yeah, the other day.
Oh yeah. Well, how many minutes did Aaron Baines play? He only played 22 as well, so I don't know. I didn't watch the game, so I'm not sure exactly what happened with that. But I mean, if you think blowout minutes will happen, I don't mind Chris Boucher and GPPs.
Okay. Let's go over OKC. We have Horford probable, Jerome injured, and Hill probable. Starters right now we have SGA, Hill, Dort, Baisley, Horford. Dort had a pretty big game recently, right?
Dort's looked really good this season. He worked on his shot a lot. He's a really good defender, but the problem is he's been priced up just because he's been having good games. So with OKC, we always like SGA. Just with his role now without CP3 there, he's still around 8K. So SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, always a good play. Getting a lot of him on both sites in both formats, just because I think that his price is still too low for his role. He shoots probably around 20 times per game. Last game he saw a few less minutes. I think that was due to the fact it was the second half of a back-to-back. So if we see 36 minutes, SGA should crush this price tag, probably upside for 50, 55 fantasy points. Someone mentioned Baisley. I don't mind him in GPPs. Definitely not someone I'm going to go after in cash games at this price tag. I think he's 5'7" on DraftKings and also 5'7" on FanDuel, so I'm staying away from him in cash games. Al Horford, I think someone mentioned him as well. His price tag is decent, but we have better plays elsewhere. We have Mitchell Robinson for 200 less on FanDuel. Scoring system fits him better, so definitely like Mitchell Robinson over Al Horford. Al Horford's minutes have been pretty low. He's been playing in the high 20s, so not something we'd love to see as DFS players. But yeah, outside of SGA, there's not too much here. They only have an implied team total of 105, which is one of the lowest on the slates. I think second lowest to the Knicks, who have 104. So yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you knew this, but we got a knowledge bomb from Hasty. He's saying that Dort is from Montreal, Montreal's finest.
Yeah. I knew that for sure.
Way out there. And he's asking if he's too much. I think you said he was priced up because of his big game, so that would probably be someone who you're buying high.
Yeah, he's too expensive for me. But he's looked really good this year, so if you think that continues, I guess you can buy into that price. Also, just want to mention, we got news on the Rockets starters. It's as we expected: John Wall, James Harden, House, Tucker, and Wood. And then we also got news that Wall, Gordon, and Cousins won't be on a minutes limit. So they were obviously, I think, quarantining for 7 days. So no minutes restriction is good to hear.
Yeah, I think there was an interview with John Wall about the whole thing, I think yesterday, and he said that he got some work in on the low. And I think he said he was stuck in his apartment or something, right? So
I didn't see it.
I think he was stuck in his apartment. He said he couldn't do anything, but then near the end of the interview, he said he got some work in on the low. So I don't know if he broke some protocol or if he was just running up and down the stairs in the apartment, like the fire exit. I have no idea. But I think he's ready. He's been waiting for, 2 years now? So I think he's hungry. I personally think he might have a really, really big game today.
Yeah, he looked really good in the preseason, even when he was alongside Harden. Like, he was producing at a really high clip, so no minutes limit. Just means we can buy into that 7K price tag on FanDuel even more.
Yeah. Yeah, we also have a comment. Diallo's a good price, I think.
Hamidou Diallo?
Yeah.
We had him in our optimal last game. Problem with him is he only plays like 20 minutes, so I mean, he could get there, but it's hard to buy in on someone who will play probably a maximum of like 22 minutes.
Okay, and then last thing I think for this game, we have a comment from Hasty. Dort will have a coming up party this year. Defensive first team, likely. What do you think of that?
Yeah, he's like probably a candidate for most improved player if he can keep up his play. He's just looked awesome. Defense incredible. Shooting stroke really good. He's been hitting threes, so everything's looking good with him.
Yeah. On most improved, I actually saw something on Sexton being. Someone said Sexton could be most improved. I'm not sure about that. I haven't really seen him play too much this year, but what do you think of that?
Definitely, I like him. He just put up 40 for me in the early slate, so I got some recency bias there for Colin Sexton, but I don't think he'll be a front runner for that just because he chucks the ball. Like, he's not really a great real life player. I think Christian Wood is probably. I'm looking at the odds right now. He's the favorite by far for most improved. Makes sense a lot. It makes a lot of sense why he's the favorite.
Well, his role also increased quite a bit, didn't it, from last year? Wood, probably.
Last year, yeah. So after Drummond got traded, he looked really good. Honestly, I have no idea why the Pistons didn't re-sign him. So definitely, it goes to show how awful the Pistons franchise is and their front office. Yeah. So with increased role, he's a really good real life player. Definitely like his chances at most improved.
The only good thing they did is get Dwayne Casey, so they snaked him from the Raptors. He's a good coach. So
he's absolutely awful. Like you just really hate to see Dwayne Casey coaching an NBA team. Like he's just his rotation is awful. His schemes are awful. Just everything about him is awful. I'm sorry.
No, I'm probably with you on that. Yeah. There's some times where I watch the Raptors games before and was kind of scratching my head at some of his decisions that he was making.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. We have one last game here to go over. Phoenix, Utah. We can go over Phoenix first. Injuries, we have Nader and Smith. For their starters right now, we have Paul, Booker, Bridges, Crowder, and Aiden. What do you think of Phoenix today?
The Suns, they have an implied team total of 108. Same thing I always say with them this season. So they added Chris Paul, which hurts Devin Booker. I think he's going to score the ball more, but he's going to get less opportunities to handle the ball. So I don't like him as much as last season. Obviously, I'm a really big Devin Booker fan in general, but not really standing out for me in DFS so far, just with his price tag still hanging around the 8K range. So not on him. Chris Paul, 7K on DraftKings. If you think he gets low 30s minutes, he'll probably beat his price tag. If he gets the 28 we've been seeing, like, we don't really want to touch him. We just have better pieces elsewhere. Ayton, same sort of thing. Low minutes so far this year, partly due to foul trouble, but also just hasn't looked too good. So most of these guys are stayaways for me in cash games for sure. You could take some shots in GPPs if you want to buy into the talent, but it's tough to trust guys who aren't playing big minutes.
Okay. We have, I think, a few questions, comments. One about Sexton from Hasty saying he was an absolute alpha stud in high school and college, and he's saying he's going to be good soon. And I think we're starting to
he's already good. He's pretty good, but all he does is score. He doesn't really put up other stats for us. Yeah. So I think I like Garland more than Sexton, honestly.
Okay.
As a player.
We have one question. Pick one. I'm not sure if this is. If you guys have questions, it's a little easier to answer them and better for you if you just say what site it is, and then if it's cash format or tournament format, GPP. But we have one. Let's just assume it's cash on FanDuel.
I can probably tell from the players that he lists.
Okay. It's Harrison Barnes, OG Anunoby, Bagley, and Aaron Gordon.
Harrison Barnes, OG Anunoby, Bagley, and Aaron Gordon?
Yep.
So if it's cash games, I'll go with Bagley. Tournaments, probably OG. I don't think we know about Aaron Gordon's minutes limit, so don't really want to touch him. He's been seeing, 22 minutes, so don't love that. And then I'm never a big Harrison Barnes guy, so I don't want to touch him either. But that is the guy with the best game environment, so you do have that going for you. Maybe in GPPs, I would go with Harrison Barnes over OG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bagley was Hasty's choice, so he's getting a bit better at this DFS thing.
Yeah, I think Bagley has a decent price tag on DraftKings.
Yep. Okay, let's go over Utah. We have a comment already. I can mention that after go over the starters and injuries. Right now we have Favors probable, Conley, Mitchell, Bogdanovich, Royce O'Neal, and Gobert. Do you think is Favors going to play today? What do you think about that? Because that's the comment we had. He's asking if he's a good price at 4.2.
No, I wouldn't play Derek Favors. I do think he'll play, but we don't need it today. If you're playing on FanDuel, you can just spend the extra 1,000 to go to Mitchell Robinson. So I definitely like him more. With Utah, same sort of thing as the Suns. They have like 4 or 5 guys who they spread the ball around to. So no one here that stands out unless there's injuries, which there isn't to the starters. Mike Conley, he had the big game, I believe, on Tuesday. So he had 50 fantasy points. So if you want to take some shots in GPPs, if you're chasing the game log, I don't hate it, but it's not something that I would do on this slate. Yeah, so Gobert and Mitchell obviously always in play on GPPs, but I just think we have better value elsewhere. One guy that's standing out for me on DraftKings on this team is Royce O'Neal. His price is 3.8K, which is just way too cheap for him. Plays like 34 minutes. With that minutes floor, it helps a lot with his price tag only being 3.8K, so he fits a lot of DraftKings builds. Yeah, so other than Royce, I think everyone else here is only in GPPs.
What's his price on FanDuel, Royce?
I think it's
3.8.
It might also be 3.8, yeah, but we don't need it at power forward just because we have Zion and Pascal and Bagley.
Yeah. Okay. What should we do? Actually, I wanted to say one thing that we're working on adding, because you said Conley, did he have a big game recently? One thing we're going to add is player cards. So pretty soon you'll be able to click on like a player name, and then we'll have like a little pop-up that kind of shows up, and it'll have like their history, some like historic data on them, like their previous price on the site, and then how they performed. And I think we'll also add what we had them projected for as well. And maybe a bunch of other data. I don't know. We'll figure out what data would be useful to have in there, but that's something we'll add. I think it'll help a lot with kind of your analysis of the slate and the players, so you don't have to go and look that up elsewhere, because we kind of just want to make all the information you need to make your decisions available on one page.
Yeah, so it'll just show his game log as well, his entire game log, like the entire box score, so you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, and I think that's it for all the games today. So if you guys have questions, we can do Q&A now. We can go over the tool if you guys have questions about that. We can go over construction, cash, GPP if you guys have questions about that. If you guys are enjoying the content, be sure to like the video. That helps us a lot. And then also hit the subscribe and the bell button so you get notifications for our future content. We do this show every single day, 2 hours before the main slate locks, so that's why the time's a little different. It just depends when the main slate starts. It's all free content. It's good content, and yeah, it's a good place to hang out to. I guess good place to hang out to get all your DFS questions answered and get your research in kind of quickly, easily, conveniently.
Yeah. You can just get a quick slate overview, which helps a lot.
Yeah, and also, since the show is 2 hours before the slate starts, there are things that sometimes often change after. So we do go over that in the private Discord. So that's included in our subscription, which is $75 a month, $25 a week. And right now we have a 3-day free trial. So if you sign up now, you get access to everything for free for 3 days. And then if you like it, you can keep your subscription. If not, you can cancel it. Zero risk. zero risk. Completely zero risk. One thing I want to say, we did actually, I think before some of this data was missing. I think we're getting that data back in here. We can go over it, I guess, a bit if you want to, Chris.
Yeah, so we have these columns. You could just start from point per minute. PPM just means
for
point
one
per
second. Let me
minute.
just open up everyone. We can go over Harden.
Yeah, so PPM, it means point per minute. So how many fantasy points does he get per minute on average? This is not a projection of today's slate. This is historical. So it's how many points he's had this season, points per minute. And then obviously point per minute per 36 minutes is point per minute multiplied by 36. Usage rate, next column, that's how many possessions the player ends with a shot, free throw, or assist, I believe. So obviously Harden has the highest usage rate on the slate at 36. Assist rate, same sort of thing. Pretty self-explanatory. 30% of possessions end with a James Harden assist. Rebound rate, 9%, same thing. And yeah, that's it. That's it for the missing data that we had.
Yeah, we also have ceiling data, so that's like what we think the player can get, like on the upside, big upside, and then the floor is kind of what we think his minimum could be on any given night. All good data. We're gonna add more data here, so it's quite useful. How would you use the points per minute, Chris? Like, what would the best way to do that? Would you look at that more if there's injury news and kind of see how certain players have done historically, or?
No, the only time I would use it is probably if I'm trying to compare a few players, like a few last pieces I'm landing on, or if I just want to see, I don't know, like guys, like secondary guys, like Goga on the Pacers. He's a really good fantasy point per minute guy. If Sabonis is out, if Miles Turner is out, Goga always smashes just because he's a really high fantasy point per minute guy. Same as Boban. So you could sort of tell those things, but for the most part, I use it just if I'm trying to decide between two players.
Okay, we have one question. What's your opinion on leaving fantasy money, like salary, on the table when building your lineups on FanDuel tournaments to be different?
Yeah, I think it's a decent thing to do. I think you can switch up your lineup using other methods like leveraging chalk plays, things like that. I think you can sort of control more than just adjusting a slider that maximizes your cap at like 59k. So I don't mind it, but I think there are better ways to gain leverage on the field than by adjusting your salary slider.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to bring up. Did you see Roby play? He looks so good.
No, I didn't really see it.
He had such a nice game against Orlando. I think he broke Vucevic's ankles like at the 3-point line. And then there was another play where I think he caught it like in the corner. Did like some nice, like he has really good handles for his size. He's a big guy. I think he like did some moves and then got to the paint, got like a pump fake up, got Vuce in the air, then like got like a really nice layup. And then it's really funny because you actually see Vucevic's face after that happened, and he made like a like he was surprised, like, huh?
Yeah, surprise face.
Yeah, like he was really surprised that he did that to him, and I think he cooked him that game. So interesting player to watch. Someone I'm super interested in when I guess Horford would be out.
Mm-hmm.
Super interested. He looked really good. Like if you guys watch that game, his highlights, they're really, really nice. I think it'd be pretty cool if they got rid of Horford and played him more. He looked so good. Really good, actually.
Yep.
Okay, do you want to do some core plays then for cash?
Yeah, we could start with DraftKings just because that slate locks in 30 minutes and FanDuel locks in an hour. So some guys we talked about, the Magic guys, Michael Carter Williams, I think he's too cheap at 3.6k with Terrence Ross out. I think he sees a lot of the usage off of the bench, so he sort of makes builds work. De'Aaron Fox, let's add him in. He's on the cover, so I do like De'Aaron Fox a lot for the reasons I mentioned when we went over that game. Just he does everything for them. He's their main guy, and he's only 7.8k, so I like that a lot. Another guy I was talking about, Zion Williamson. I think he's a lock as well, just because he's too cheap for me as always with these core plays. And then last guy is Royce O'Neal. If you lock Royce in, you'll get a higher average salary remaining, so you'll be able to fit in some high end pieces later. Yeah, those four are the core plays for DraftKings in cash games.
Okay, let's hit build. Let's do 10 for that. Okay, so it looks like the difference here is, what is it? Not SJ. Ingram?
Yeah, Ingram and Fournier versus Mitchell and Elfrid Payton. So I was talking up Ingram a lot. I think he's too cheap on DraftKings, only 8k compared to I think 9.5 on FanDuel as I mentioned earlier. So I like Ingram. I also mentioned Fournier at the start of the show just because Terrence Ross is out. I think Fournier has an increased role here. More minutes, more shots, so just everything working in his favor. Second side is Donovan Mitchell and Elfrid Payton. Donovan Mitchell, he's sort of, I don't know, I don't love playing him just because whenever I talk about them, I always mention that the ball moves around with them a lot. It could be any given guy on any given night that gets there. So don't love him, but I don't mind him there at 7.6. And then Elfrid Payton, he's sort of, I have mixed feelings about him. Usually when I play him, he gets there. We have the Alec Burks injury, so he should see a good minutes floor. I think that is Rivers a game time decision today. Do we know that? Yeah, Rivers is probable. Burks out. Ntilikina out. Quickly out. So
I think we have Rivers actually in now.
Yeah. Okay. So Rivers is in, but the difference is that Frank Ntilikina is out today.
Yeah,
and he's been in for the rest. He's been in for the past 4 games. So I do like Elfrid Payton. Don't mind him there as a last piece, but I probably still like this first team more than the second team.
Okay. Let's go into the FanDuel side. Just a reminder, if you guys are doing DraftKings, it's half an hour earlier with that extra game. So if you guys are playing there, make sure you don't forget. It's always important not to forget to update your lineup.
Yep.
Okay. Who do you like on FanDuel for your core plays?
So just because we got this, the Knicks news as we were on the show, we're going to have more guys in here. So first guy I'll mention is Elfrid Payton. He's cheaper on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. He's only 5.2k, so if he's the main guy, which we project him to be, if we project him to have 35 minutes like he saw in the past game, should absolutely smash this price tag. So do like Elfrid Payton. Next guy here is RJ Barrett. Same team, same situation. So we just have the high minutes. We usually don't like targeting players against Toronto, but just because the injury news broke and then they're still priced as if all these guys were playing, we don't mind taking them. Next up, Julius Randle, another New York Knick. These guys are just getting too big of bumps for their price tag, so we do see a lot of Knicks in our build today. Sometimes it's scary, but as long as this game can somewhat stay close, even if it doesn't, Tom Thibodeau likes running his guys into the ground, so we shouldn't have too much risk with a blowout with their minutes. Last guy I'll mention here is Pascal Siakam. So he's from the same game. I was talking about him earlier on FanDuel, 7.4. We usually get him in the 8 to 8.5k range, so just too cheap for his role. And then, yeah, that's it for the FanDuel Cash Core plays.
Okay, let's hit build and see what happens. One thing I want to bring up, another feature I think we're interested in adding is, let me go back to the other page, is right next to these filters at the top, probably going to add something beside it where we have like Chris's core plays as a filter, so you can kind of just click that there, and then you'd get a list of his favorite core plays throughout the day. And then I think maybe if my GPP plays aren't too crazy, we'll probably add one from my favorite GPP plays as well. And I think, yeah, if there's anyone else who we think would do a good job with like a filter there in our community, we would probably also add other people in there. So that'd be a nice way to stay up to date with everything all in the tool.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the builds here. One other thing you guys can see with the news here, you can see that Payton's projected ownership jumped quite a bit now. Randall as well. And yeah, all this stuff updates in the background to take into account all the latest news, so it's pretty slick. Yep. What do you think of these two, Chris, John Wall in the first one?
So the difference is we have James Harden in the first build. Pretty much he's the spend up compared to a more balanced build in the second one, just because we have can you close the things, Gary, just so it's easier to read? Oh yeah, or that. Okay, so John Wall, James Harden, and House versus De'Aaron Fox, SGA, and Harry Barnes. So I guess we can start with John Wall. We talked about him. He's too cheap at 7K on FanDuel. No minutes restriction. We got word of that, so I do like that a lot, that price tag for him. We also get Harden, which whenever we can jam in a stud like Harden, Luka, Giannis, any of these guys, Jokic, we always like to do that, so I do like him there at shooting guard. House, same sort of thing. He's just too cheap, 4.1K in this elite game environment, so don't mind him there as a last piece. Second build is a little more balanced with Fox and SGA. I talked about them a lot. Fox is on the thumbnail, on the cover of the thumbnail, so he is a solid play today. SGA, same sort of thing. We expect him to have a big year this season without Chris Paul there. Harrison Barnes, one guy I don't love for 5.9K. He's probably the main reason I am leaning the first side over the second side. Also with the first side, we get three players from the best team to target players from in the Rockets. They have the highest implied team total at 118.5. So yeah, definitely like the first side here more than the second side.
Okay. We have one question on our Discord from Weaver. If I'm playing one lineup, any tips for the Opto?
If he's playing one lineup?
Yeah. What are some things you would look at?
My biggest tip would probably be just trust the projections. Like, they're super sharp. If you deviate too much, you can get yourself into trouble if you're just playing one lineup. So I would just say trust the projections where you can.
Okay. Yeah, trust the projections, and then yeah, I think that's pretty.
Also, make sure you're keeping up to date with late news. Like, if anything breaks, we'll obviously tag everyone in the Discord and then let everyone know. But there's since you have late swap, you should take advantage of it. If you're falling behind in contests, you can always late swap away from some of the higher owned guys. You can gain leverage that way. Maybe have a chance at winning your money back with doing that. But if you're ahead, you just want to pretty much block the players that other players have, so you want to keep the chalky guys.
Lock the chalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other thing I'd say, you just said that, but I'll just repeat it again because it's important. Just keep up to date with all the news leading up to each game's lock. So you want to have the latest news taken into account in your lineup. So that's the most important thing. Keep the news into account for your lineups and just stay up to date. Is there anything else you want to go over today, or should we start working on our lineups? Jump into the Discord. You're good? No other questions? Okay, yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I think it was a good show. Fun as always. Good luck today. Hope you guys have a good New Year's Eve and New Year's as well. If you guys like the content, like the video, helps us a lot. Subscribe so you can come back again and hang out with us. Hit the bell button so you can get emails. I think they'll email you every time we go live, which is every day for every NBA slate, 2 hours before the main one. It's a good place to get all your news and insights here, and construction, roster construction for the day, all of that. And if you guys like what you see with the tool, you guys can get access for free. There's a 3-day free trial right now. Just go to dfscrunch.com, sign up for the monthly or the weekly, and you'll get access 3 days free. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't, you can cancel it at any time. You get access to the Discord. You get access to our tool. You get access to the projections. You get access to both FanDuel, DraftKings, and all of the sports. There's a bunch of sports, so you'll be busy and you'll have fun here for sure. And yeah, with that said, see you guys tomorrow, and good luck today.
Yeah, good luck.